We got a project today. 1934 Packard. And that's all it fits. The numbers on it. Casting numbers, if you happen to call to get a kit, the numbers are right here. 1521 762 is what this one here is. And if need be, there's the arm numbers. We're going to go through it. I'll show you how it's done the right way. Mark your location. I like to make a mark at this center facing the arm. That way I only have to mark 1/2. This pump has obviously been rebuilt before. This is what some people have done. And you can do that. Take a hacksaw, make a cut, as long as you mark both pieces. And okay, what this customer has done is given me another top casting, because this one here is cracked. And let's see where he marked it. And kind of hard to tell. But I'll check in the books and see where it's supposed to be. A lot of times the catalogs will give me a inlet and outlet position on it, and I'll be able to double check what he's got here, unless this is what fits his particular vehicle. If you send me your pump and you've taken it apart and put it back together and decided, I can't do this, make sure you put it back the same way, because when I get it, I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to mark it exactly how it is now. Like this one here, I would mark this right in this spot, and I would put this cover right back on the same place that it was. Take these 4 screws out, and then these 10 screws. Once these screws are out, you get a screen and a gasket. Remove those. You'll get new ones. Then take these 10 out. Take out 9 screws, hold on the last one, and I'll show you why. As you're removing some of these screws, when you get down to about the 8th or the 9th one, you'll notice the casting will start lifting up. This is the way I say to hold off on the last one. Put your hand over the top and hold that casting down. There's a spring out of here. If you took all those things out and it was stuck down, which usually happens, as soon as you take this last one out, that spring will take over and blow this thing right up to the ceiling. It's a pretty strong spring. There's your inlet and outlet valves for the vacuum side. There's your diaphragm. And this is keyed into the link on here. Now we're going to flip it over, but I think the glass bowl is going to be in the way from holding it, so we're going to move it to the other side of the vise. And then we'll take it from there. Okay, after checking in the AC books, the position of the original one, where the customer has it set straight, is supposed to be back this way. And then I start digging around and I see he did make a mark, and it lines up with another mark on here, not in this position but over here. We're going to duplicate the way that this one here was rather than this. I think that's why this fitting is on here, and with it in the right position, it's what it's going to do is move it down here. They'll probably have to change this other side. Rather than a straight fitting, they might need a 45 or a 90. But this is what happens when it doesn't go back the way it was on the car. I'll be sending emails to the customer anyway. He's over in England, just to make sure. But in any event, what you'd want to do is mark this, the location of the inlet and the outlet. Take a picture of it, gouge it, you know, put a scrape on the casting, top and bottom, so that you put it back the same way it came out, and you don't have to run into the misery that I am. Now I'm obviously going to have to take this plug out, because it's right in the way of the screw. This one's fine, the rest of them are all fine. Remove all the 10 screws. Oh, dopey me, all I had to do was remove the bowl, and then I could leave it on this side, which is what I'm doing. Now this side also has a spring under it, but it's underneath the diaphragm, and it's only going to push it up so far. So it's not such an urgent, be careful, as you can see it only goes up just so far. And it's already got our valves in it. So somebody's changed it at one point. Our gasket and our screen. Again, on your fuel diaphragm, just turn it 90 degrees and it'll unhook from the link inside. Underneath that, it's a little cap, and inside there is your oil seal. You'll get a new one of these. I think this one's going to take a trip through the wash tank first and get all this grease out of here. I want it nice and clean when I work on it. And seeing as how the customer wants me to use this cover, we're going to have to remove the valves that they put in it. Just pry up on everything. Stick your screwdriver in and work it to one side, and it'll pop out. Underneath is a gasket. Same thing with the other one. And the gasket. And I don't want this fitting in here. We want to remove both of these fittings. You never know what's going to be hiding behind these things. This is why you don't use Teflon tape. See that right there? It gets inside and it sticks on the valves. One of these valves will open up. The valve will open up and a piece of that Teflon tape gets in there and sits there and holds the valve open. Now your pump doesn't work. And you know what's going to happen when you're driving down the highway, going on a cruise. Let's take out the valves for the vacuum side. You need a pretty small screwdriver for this. There's 4 screws that hold it down. You can see they're so tiny. Don't drop them. As you know, there's a little animal down on the floor that'll pick it up and run with it. And you won't see it. After those 4 screws come out, that's the seat for the valve. Here's the valve and the spring, the gasket, and this gasket holds, this gasket here holds this retainer, another spring, and the other valve. Now where I'm going to be glass beading everything, I don't want these holes to be filled with glass beads, so I put the screws back in just to fill up the holes, and it cleans the end of the screws too. Don't drop them. You could put screws in here, but I can clean them out. Everything's ready to go through the glass beater, and we'll be back. Now that everything's been cleaned up, glass beaded and clear coated, make sure this area is flat, and make sure this area is flat. And to install, on this particular style, the valves. The original version of this, these 2 pieces unscrewed, the dome and the nut, and the valve is sitting underneath it. But seeing as how that piece is no good, he's moved on to this. Customer's preference. No big deal. Put the gaskets in. Now, this is going to be the outlet, so fuel's going to go down through here and out. Use your tool and press them in. Where that went in so hard, there's no need to dimple the casting anymore, because there's no way that's coming out of there. And the other one, this fuel comes in, goes into the ball, down through the screen, and out through that little hole right there, and then it's got to come up through here and into the pump. So this valve goes this way. And that's down. Now I'm not going to put this on yet. Well, I can put it on now. I was going to let that wait until after I got the thing mounted, but I'm waiting for an email back from the customer as to the correct orientation for this. So in the meantime, put your screen on and your gasket and the bail, drop the bowl on, and snug it down. Now to make sure you have a good seal around here, try sucking air back out through this, and you shouldn't be able to do it with that valve closed. If you can, the first place you're going to look is around here to make sure you got a good seal around here. Then the next step would be around that valve. But we're all set. Now we're going to do the vacuum casting. First we want to get these 4 screws out of the way. They're not needed there. They're not needed yet. Clean this seat. Take a dowel, put a little piece of sandpaper in the center. Something fine, doesn't have to be coarse. Secure it in there and just spin it. It's probably a half inch dowel. Just to make sure, let's measure it. Half inch. Once that's clean, you also want to clean the other half of it. This is for the other valve. Make it nice and shiny. That way you know it's flat. We need springs and valves. I'm sure you noticed that the valves I took out of there were round. The ones I'm putting in, they're hexagonal. Same thing, only different. 2 little springs. Which you get in the kit. One on top of the valve and one in that little pocket. It can be a little tricky. Drop a valve on top. It usually falls on me. Take your gasket. Get it ready. And this part, well, I forgot one thing. We got to put this retainer in here. The retainer just sits on the top of that spring that just tipped over. And this one like that. You gotta have a steady hand on this, and I don't. So what we do is we get it close, and then we push it right down real quick, and make the adjustments after. Just like that. You can't see it, but the gasket moved, which is not a big deal. We can straighten it out. Get one of the screws caught. 2 if you can. This is not a job if you got shaky hands. Now I just have a little tool that I use to line up that gasket. Drop the screw in and the other one. Tighten them down. Now, a quick little test is, obviously you can't do anything with that, but you want to be able to pull air out and not push air back in. And it works. Put your screen on. And what I like to do is, it's something else to watch for. A lot of times these pieces right here, these screw holes, they tend to get dented in as people just over tighten them. So to make things a little easier, putting this part together, stick the screws in, get them caught through that gasket, and I should have looked. Line it up and snug them down. Okay, so now the fuel casting and the vacuum casting is all set, ready to go back on. Time to work on the body. We got a leather seal. Here's a little hint: is the seal has to fit over this, and just have a little bit of drag on that pull rod. I take my Dremel tool with one of the carbide bits and just run it around inside to open that up. This is the size of it. It just so happens that the cutters that we have, they make them a little small. And in order to make this thing fit right, you got to open that up. Take a little bit of oil, put it on there, just so that it's got some kind of lubricant on it. We don't want anything running dry. Set it down over the top. Spring. Make sure that seat is in there. Set it down through. Turn the pump over and look down through here, and you'll be able to push it up and turn it. And if everything's right, these holes will all line up like they do. Get ready to put the fuel casting on, but I have to wait for the customer to get back to me. He had it sitting that's the way it's gonna go. He had it sitting this way. So we're going to put it back the way that the factory says. Okay, we want to get these, at least a couple of these screws started. And looks like the bowl's going to be in the way. So let's take it off for now. And get, like I said, get at least 2 of these screws started. Take some of the pressure off. Line up the screws and get them caught. And get as many of these screws stuck and caught as you can. With any luck, you get all 10 of them caught. Just don't tighten them down. Leave them loose. Bring the screws down to the casting. And just leave it there. You don't have to watch me do this. And this next part is rather important. We have to preload this diaphragm. On this particular pump, where you can get at the link under there, catch it with a screwdriver like I did and make it so that the diaphragm goes down. Go as far as it can. Then tighten up the screws. Get at least 4 of them done opposite each other. Once you get at least 4 of them done, then you can go around and tighten all the rest of them down. All these screws tightened down. One thing to keep in mind is your screw is going into cast aluminum. So you don't want to really crank down on it, but you want to make them nice and tight all the way around, so that you don't get any leaks. And we're going to put this plug back in. Now avoid using Teflon tape. If you have to seal the threads, use Teflon paste. Flip it over and we can work on the vacuum side. Vacuum diaphragm, large plate on top, small plate on the bottom. They take one of these hex plates on both sides and make sure that there's the copper washer in there. This side's kind of easy because you can see what you're doing. One of the drawbacks to this side is you have to push that up in order for the vacuum side, the diaphragm, instead of being preloaded, it's preloaded in the neutral position. Put your spring on. Find your index that you made earlier. This is the one that I made. Put 2 screws in, one opposite each other. As you can see right away, see how the diaphragm's picking up? Just get the screw cut and get the other side cut. Keep an eye on the diaphragm around the outside edge. Make sure it hasn't folded in and gotten caught underneath this casting. This one looks pretty good, and usually it does get caught. Again, just bring the screws down just to the casting. Don't tighten them up yet. Now remember, I gotta pull this arm so that it brings the diaphragm up to that neutral position. A couple of different ways to do it. I use my big water pump pliers. Catch on the back and catch on the arm. It's not an easy task, but it's got to be done. Can you see that moving? Let's see if I can zoom in. Get it into that neutral position, tighten them down. We're just about done with this one. Tightening up all these screws. One little trip around to make sure I didn't miss any, like that one. Get that one. Put the bowl back on. And this puppy is ready for the engine. And that's all there is to it. That was simple. If you have any questions or any comments, put them down below in the comment section. Any questions or anything, you can put them in there. If you want to send your pump in, go to our website, then-now.com. You'll have our shipping address there, and our phone number's there. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. I hope it helped.